and high-quality water. This commitment is essential to the overall state of our environment, which can be fragile, but also for the well-being of every person who lives in Bermuda. So why is this important? Clean air and water are, of course, fundamental to public health and the sustainability of our natural ecosystems. Ensuring that the purity of these essential resources protects our communities' health and our island's economy and preserves Bermuda's natural beauty for future generations. To achieve these goals, we propose to make amendments to two pieces of legislation, the Water Resources Act 1975 and the Clean Air Act 1991. Over the next 3 weeks, the government invites the public to comment on these proposed legislative changes. Additionally, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources will also be holding individual consultation sessions, meetings with stakeholders, and anyone who's interested, perhaps, to get feedback on this legislation. Contact the department and they will assist in that. Following that consultation period, we will consider the feedback and amend the bills accordingly before bringing the final version to Cabinet for consideration so that it can be tabled in the House this year. Our goal is next month, July 2024. Let me begin with the intended changes to the Water Resources Act. Every 5 years, we issue approximately 3,142 water rights to manage the use of groundwater from wells for various purposes. These include toilet flushing, treating groundwater to make potable water, cooling water for buildings, and irrigation. We also manage about 871 disposable boreholes for uses including discharging treated wastewater, road stormwater runoff, and cooling water returning from buildings. Well riggers also are regulated to ensure the compliance with the Act. Monitoring groundwater quality and the status of the freshwater lenses is crucial to managing the island's water resources. Recent boat sewage regulations created non-discharge zones close to shore and within various enclosed areas and harbors. Updates to the Act will enable public officers from other departments to enforce these regulations and assist in identifying habitual offenders who discharge sewage within non-discharge zones. Many environmentally conscious companies already report pollution spills, monitor and clean up soils and waters as part of their operating licenses. This is currently under the Clean Air Act 1991 and only applies to some companies. In order to comprehensively address these issues, it is proposed that they should be dealt with under the Water Resources Act. This will ensure that all polluting activities are controlled to protect human health and the environment. It is proposed that new regulations based on existing cleanup guidelines will be applied to any person who pollutes, and we certainly don't want anybody polluting. The new amendments will make it an offense not to report a pollution event, allow for pollution stop orders, and mandate the need for abatement and remediation of polluted ground and groundwater. This will significantly enhance government's ability to protect the environment. Additionally, government will provide best practice guidance online based on international processes from developed jurisdictions to inform the public on how to reduce the risk of pollution spills. Now I will discuss the Clean Air Act. The Clean Air Act 1991, and Clean Air Regulations 1993 aim to ensure that the outside air we breathe is safe. Advances in our understanding of the biological effects of certain pollutants require periodic refinement of the limited values stipulated in the regulations. These refinements help to ensure that emissions from various sources do not adversely affect people and the natural environment. Through licensing, the Act protects the public and our environment from ensuring polluting facilities use appropriate technologies to keep emissions below stipulated thresholds. Over 600 polluting facilities, or what are termed control plants, are licensed annually through this Act, including electrical generators such as Belco and standby units, stone crushers, sifters, and cutters, incinerators, including Tynes Bay, Medi-Waste, and crematoria, waste management facilities, aerated sewage treatment plants, concrete manufacturers, spray paint facilities for both vehicles and machinery, asphalt plants, dry cleaners and boilers, and hazardous chemical storage. The DENR, which is the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, manages a range of monitoring stations around Bermuda through a contract with BIOS, Bermuda Institute of Ocean Sciences. The department can also place conditions on licenses of pollutant facilities to provide supplemental ambient air monitoring. All air quality monitoring data is published annually to the department and informs policy decisions. The regulations also address the importation, use, and export of controlled chemicals. The list of chemicals can be refined as our understanding of their impact on people and the environment improves and safer alternatives become available. However, despite some contaminants falling below the stipulated limited values or not being listed as controlled chemicals, their effects as nuisance odor on the public can still be significant. With this in mind, the government wishes to amend the Clean Air Act to make the following changes. One, refine pollutant limited values to further reduce risks to people and the environment. Bermuda proposed limited values will be more stringent than the equivalent values in the UK. Let me repeat that. Bermuda's proposed limited values will be more stringent than the equivalent values in the United Kingdom and align to the aspirational objectives target levels of the UK, but will be much more enforceable. For extremely small polluting particles, we are proposing to use the United States, the US national statute limit, as it is more stringent than the UK limit or UK equivalent. Limited values in the proposed amendments will cover the following: sulfur dioxide, ozone, hydrogen chloride, nitrogen dioxide, lead, hydrogen sulfide, carbon monoxide, polyaromatic hydrocarbons, benzene, microscopic particles known as PM10 and PM2.5, address public impacts from Belco, the utility, their North Power Station engines by tightening controls on exhaust fumes and odor nuisances, require licensees to develop and submit air quality action plan for review and approval by the minister when emissions exceed limited values. The plan must include a schedule of actions and goals for improvement. Public consultation will also be a part of the AQAP process. Introduce new odor regulations to set limit values for nuisance odors generated by control plants. Trained assessors will use the dilution to threshold method to determine whether the odor can be considered a nuisance or not. Incorporate best available technologies for preventing or minimizing emissions and impacts, including nuisance odors. Define approved air containment measurements, methodologies equivalent to the US EPA standards and other indicative methods. Expand the list of controlled chemicals to include replacement refrigerant gases introduced under the Montreal Protocol 1987, now being replaced due to what is called GWP, global warming potential. Redefine certain controlled plants, specifically facilities for spray painting vehicles and machinery, to include open air spray painting and inflatable spray paint booths operated commercially. I must clarify to the public that the Belco soot issue, which everybody has had a lot to say about, is separate to the fuel oil odor and exhaust fume issues that these amendments are designed. Measure periodic fallout events has, of course, been challenging. And further consultation both we had with the Attorney General to determine the appropriate measures and mechanisms to address these issues. Over the next 3 weeks, the public is invited to consider the proposed changes to the Clean Air Act and Water Resources Act, specifically for the Clean Air Act, air quality limits outside ambient air, additional locations for ambient air quality monitoring, standards for ambient air under new regulations, increased enforcement powers and appropriate fines under the Clean Air Act and regulations, monitoring requirements for control plants that pollute, public participation in developing air quality action plans for areas with poor air quality. For the Water Resources Act, establishing pollution limits above ground to prevent pollution of public water and seawater resources, environmental pollution standards under the new regulations, increasing enforcement powers under the Water Resources Act 1975 and the Water Resources Prevention of Pollution by Sewage from Boats Regulations 2018. Appropriate fines to deter behaviors that pollute the environment, including marine outfalls under the definition of works to manage waste discharge into the sea. Reporting timelines for pollution authorities. Information should be included in available best practice guidelines to reduce the risk of pollution. I encourage everyone to visit Bermuda's Citizens Forum at forum.be. I'll repeat that. Forum.gov.be